Welcome into the latest live edition of the Winner Circle presented by Naira and Naira Bets, the official online betting partner of the Belmont Stakes and Saratoga Racecourse, which is just a few weeks away. I'm Bram Weinstein. That's Dan Torgman. Apparently, there was a memo today, wear black T-shirts, so that's what we went with today. What's up, Dan? Week off? How you been?
I feel refreshed, man. I've got the tropical vibes going with the hat. I feel good. I got a little bit of tan. You probably can't tell because it's kind of dark in here today. I don't know what's going on. My lighting's
Where'd you
go? Atlantic City, which I spent mostly indoors. But then we went to Cape May, which is beautiful, by the way. Like hidden gem. I don't know if you've ever been to Cape May.
Yeah, it's like all these. It's yesteryear houses, like all these antique houses, and yeah.
It's beautiful out there, and it's the beach is great. Lots of great restaurants. So I was a blast. I'd heard people mentioning Cape May. I was like, maybe I'll get there one day. Maybe I won't. Really glad we got there. If you're in the Northeast looking for like a weekend getaway, Cape May is spectacular.
Yeah. So you had a little summer vacation. That's cool. So that means world's opening up a little bit. My radio producer went to see the Foo Fighters at Madison Square Garden. So world's opening up a little bit, right? I was watching the U.S. Open yesterday. There was a bazillion people there. So world's opening up a little bit. I'm seeing crowds and reaction shots when the 76ers blow it. Like I'm watching all this stuff, like world's happening here. And then there was the Queen at Royal Ascot. The Queen showed up in person. So I think, it ain't over. Like nothing's over, but it feels like we're kind of there now.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, this was, you mentioned it, everything from the racing to the NBA to Royal Ascot, which I said Royal Ascot, the racing, but to the golf, U.S. Open, which was, also spectacular. Yeah, no, it's really nice. I mean, I will say it's a little freaky. Like when we got to Atlantic City, we saw people wearing masks there, like they were abiding by the rules set up by the casinos, but at the table it was sort of optional as to whether you wore the mask. But some people were wearing, some people weren't. We got to Cape May, and again, most of us is outdoors on the beach, walking up and down like the sort of the strip there. Nobody wearing masks. So like you go from like people sort of still wearing masks to like nobody at all over like a 3-4 day period wearing a mask, and it's like, all right, cool. Like I
guess that's where we are now. Yeah.
All right, I'm okay. All right,
yeah.
Good.
I guess that's where we are now. All right, couple pieces of news out of Ascot this weekend that I want to talk to you about, and then one thing I wrote about on ABR, and I just kind of want to get your take on it. But let me start with this. They have announced they expanded the race week, so it's turned into a full week now that's going on at Ascot. They got 7 days, which is new, and they said 100% it's staying. So I think that's a good thing for racing. This falls into a pop culture-ish type event. I don't know it from the perspective from British racing, but I see it from our perspective here. And I've always liked when racing is kind of profiled in this manner, which is kind of upper class. You get dressed up. The owners are linked to literally to royalty. It's eye candy when you watch the coverage of the whole thing. So I'm glad to see. I think more is better considering what the venue looks like, the people that show up, how important it is. So I think more is more for horse racing as a whole if Ascot's going to expand like that.
Yeah, look, I think with these things, you're playing to a couple of audiences, right? I mean, obviously the play here is to, the participant or the fan or the potential fan or bettor who, has disposable income, likes to be in the scene, is looking for a nice, fun sort of upper crust day out, maybe. And if we can present racing as that's great. Now, you always do kind of run the risk of alienating a whole lot of people when you do that, right? So that's the downside. And like, again, maybe I'm too plugged into like horse racing Twitter and, I just want to, let me go to the track, wearing my cargo shorts and drinking Bud Light, which is great. Like, I think that's how I spend all of my days when I'm not there working. I mean, I'm wearing shorts and I'm drinking beer, like, and you should be able to do that. The problem is, I think when we over-index on the Sport of Kings, on the royalty, on the high fashion stuff, it really does incense like the core fan, which to a certain degree I get it, but to a certain degree, because I'm in marketing, I also know that there's marketing that's for you and there's marketing that's not for you. and it doesn't necessarily hurt to appeal to the broadest possible population, like, which is everybody, right? I mean, if you've got something for everybody, why not appeal to everybody?
I agree. And this is what I wrote about this week. As you know, I like to go full think tank on these pieces when I write for the for the site. I don't like to break down a race or anything like that. I like to think big picture. And let me just tell you, when you Google Royal Ascot this week, when you Google that, here are the stories that are going to pop up. The Queen showed up first time since 2019. Obviously, there was a pandemic, and there's all these pictures of the Queen, and then they're talking about it's the first time she's been in public since Philip died. So there's pictures of the Queen and all that stuff that's going on. There's a link to best dressed 7 dogs that were at the event. Best dressed 7 dogs. The next thing that popped up was Sophie, Countess of Wessex, recycles her hat from Kate and William's wedding. That's the next story that pops up. So here's the reality. All right. If you're looking for a result from one of those races, you're actually going to have a hard time on the Google search literally finding that, which is, problematic, I suppose, on some level for the sport, for the core fans that may want to know that. And more, to me, eye-opening to what the sport is and can be. And I'm with you on the idea that it all doesn't have to be literally put out there like you become royalty if you're part of this, or you're part of some kind of wealth status if you're part of this. What I'm saying is that this sport really has culture and fashion embedded in it, and that's the marketing part of it. And if we are marketing differently as opposed to just the straight gambling, which is the vast majority of the content, especially stateside, that we put out there, that I think we'd be best served to try to intertwine that. And I mean across all of socioeconomic levels. Like, we don't need to turn everything into the Kentucky Derby, because it's not. And we don't need to make everything gambling, because it's not. The middle ground is all the things that are interesting about the sport that could be appealing to people of all wealth levels, because the sport is appealing to people of all wealth levels. So that's what I tried to get across in my piece, is that I've been waiting for the day that, like, when we do all these Google searches of American racing, they are writing about this intertwined with American culture, as opposed to, just that 1 or 2 days a year, like the Kentucky Derby. And it's not all about the hats and the brooches and the sundresses. There are different levels of fashion that can be tapped into. There could be more cultural levels that are tapped into. And now that it's been democratized to have some level of ownership, if you want to, I think there's room there to try to expand upon that as well.
Yeah. Look, all those points are well taken. And I think, you're making a very nuanced argument. And a lot of times, again, maybe just being in the echo chamber of sort of horse racing, social media, and all the rest of it, I sometimes, there's no room for nuance, right? In that medium, right? You can't really talk about striking that balance when you're on horse racing Twitter and that sort of thing. Um, yeah, like, I get it. And I feel like I've got, like, my people on one side who I know are like the hardcore bettors and the gamblers, and who want to see no mention of fashion or lifestyle in racing marketing. But then I also know what the data shows in terms of how we bring in new people, how we get clicks, how we get impressions and engagement. It's by leveraging influencers and trying to get those stories out, like the ones that you said. The top 3 stories that come out have nothing to do with a horse. As it relates to Royal Ascot, that's the reality. Like, people are not searching. People who don't know about horse racing are not searching for Stradivarius. Like, that means nothing to them. Like, they don't know who that horse is. And so they're not going to find out about that horse unless we hook them with a story about the best dressed dogs and the Queen being there, right?
So, and my point is this too, like, the gambling's insinuated. Like,
Mhm.
you don't, you don't need to put it in your face that you can gamble on this. It's
Right.
insinuated that that's part of the whole thing, right? So that's why, and I'm not saying, like, listen, because I wrote about this and I'm sitting there going, I hope the people at TVG or Naira or whoever, Fox or whoever, who, like, puts out all this racing coverage, isn't pissed reading this, because the vast majority of the content they're going to put out, like 99.9% of it, is going to be the meat and potatoes, people on a set talking about the races, breaking them down, recapping them if it's a big race, or just moving on to the next one, and, like, trying to institute gambling knowledge and handicapping advice. And I don't think, to your point, there's nothing wrong with that. The hardcore gamblers who are following it that closely, of course, want that, and it's tried and true methodology. I'm trying to cast the net wider. Like, I look at sports like BMX or snowboarding or these other sports where they are talking about the culture and lifestyle in and around it. Like, nobody's really following the half pipe competition all that closely, except for the Olympics. However, the scene, the party, the fashion, everything in and around a sport like that is what makes it valuable and attractive. And I feel this is a sport that's been way ahead of that curve because of all the different venues you could go to and take part in something like that. That there are different levels of fashion that you could tap into that aren't just the very expensive hats and the beautiful sundresses that the women wear and the seersucker suits. Like, there's alcohol that is clearly intertwined with this. There is culture that is clearly intertwined with all of this. Country lifestyle, city lifestyle. I guess I'm just waiting for the day that the light bulb goes off, and that's not all of what we're doing here. And I'm not saying change what you're doing on Wednesday with coverage from Belmont. I am saying think about what the weekends look like when you're trying to get the message across of what this actually is and what it's about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Look, diversity of content is, I think, a winning recipe for racing. The bottom line is we've got so much that you've got the horses, you've got the gambling, you've got the drinking, you've got the party. There's such an experience. I was with my dad actually yesterday at Monmouth. So I came back from a week-long trip in Jersey, came back to New York, and then went back out to Monmouth Park with my dad yesterday for Father's Day, which was really nice. And when we were there, I was struck by how many younger, people there were. There were a lot of children, and I mean children. I mean, like between the ages of like 5 to 10, and they were there with their moms and their dads and their aunts and uncles, whoever else was with them, and I saw a lot of moments in which they were showing their kids the program, and they were showing them the horses, and they were showing them all these different things, and just the excitement on those kids' faces reminded me and I really did think about it, especially because I was sitting there with my dad. It was pretty poignant, like just the moments when he sat with me and kind of explained all these different things about horse racing to me. And I even told him yesterday, I said, I just remember that moment. There was so much to take in. There was just so much there. Like, I didn't know what to grasp onto. Like, I could have grasped onto anything. As it turns out, I'm a degenerate, right? So like the gambling, is what I grasped onto. But, you just remember that moment where oh my God, the odds, and what does that mean? So if this horse wins, you get paid how much? And there's so much, there's stuff for the creative mind. There's stuff for the analytical mind. There's stuff for, the mathematical mind. There's stuff for, just the person who wants to just go and chill and let loose. There's so much for everybody. And so I think diversity of content, showing images to people of things that appeal to them, no matter who they are, is super important.
Yeah, I think it is too. All right. And as for the gambling, hey, bet your favorite tracks online with Naira Bets. Available nationwide in 30 states, Naira Bets offers best in class HD live video and replays, online contests to compete with other Naira Bets players, exclusive promotions that give back more, and expert picks and analysis. With an easy to use, free to download app, betting horse racing online has never been easier and safer. Sign up for Naira Bets now to earn a $200 sign up bonus with promo code ABR200. And welcome back to the Winner's Circle, presented by Naira and Naira Bets. I'm Bram Weinstein with Dan Torgman. All right, so one other thing opened recently, Dan, and I want to talk to you about this. Woodbine reopened recently and started racing again. And on the weekends, I like to, as no surprise, when I get some free time in the afternoon, pop up my app and start perusing the racetracks and figuring out, throw some cash down on whoever. And Woodbine's back open. And I used to love betting Woodbine mainly because I had success for no very good reason, but whatever, my picks seemed to be on it there. So I like going. I'm glad Woodbine's back open again. Mm-hmm. It is. And if you'll notice, at least the first couple of weeks here, the first week of it, it's as if these horses never left the country of Canada and raced anywhere else. And maybe they weren't allowed to, because in every single race, all of them last raced 8-9 months ago. So can I bet Woodbine or not when the entire field has nothing recent to base your decisions on?
Yeah.
How am I going to bet on anything in that race? How?
Well, I mean, so again, as as I look back fondly again on the fact that I was on vacation last week, I didn't get to wager as much as I usually do, especially on Woodbine, because I would be playing Woodbine, as well. I love Woodbine. Um, I think, to your question, I think the prudent thing to do might be to like sit back, and if you really are doing it like
Yeah.
to turn a profit for the meet, you may want to sit back and not, I mean, see how the track's playing, see which trainers are, are ready to roll with fit horses. I mean, if I were to just start immediately firing, not knowing much information about these horses that have been off for 8 or 9 months, what I would typically do is two things. One, I would take a look at how any of those horses may have run off a long layoff previously. And then the other thing I would do is I think it goes barn to barn, right? Stable to stable. So basically, which stables do well bringing horses back off of a long layoff versus those who don't, those who typically give a horse a race or two before they have them ready to peak. And so I think you can do those as sort of logical attempts at trying to figure out which runners might be live. But yeah, it's totally, a bit of a guessing game this early on in the meet. And, I think that's just sort of a dilemma we face.
It's beyond a dilemma, because like, here's one of my biases. Like, even if it's like a great horse from 8 months ago, if they're on that long
layoffs, I know you hate betting horses.
I hate long layoffs. I hate long layoffs. I don't care who it is. I hate unless like some Triple Crown winner is going to run in some $40,000 allowance race off of 9 months off. Then I'm like, oh, okay. Obviously they're probably going to, if they don't, there's a real problem, but obviously they're going to win. In any of those cases, that is an X out for me immediately. Like I don't care who it is. I don't like layoffs like that. I don't know why. I just don't. And I think non-scientifically, I'm right in thinking that way. And I'm staring down full fields where everybody's on a 9-month layoff. I'm like, What in the world? Like, what in the world?
You just wave to your neighbor?
No, we have water damage down here. And these guys got to come in my house. And I was hoping they would not come at 11:17, but they have. And they snuck around the back and he surprised me. So, I got to let him in soon.
Oh my God. That's so funny. It's like the time, remember we had like the whatever the tile waxing people outside my door, just blaring that sound. No, I feel you. And it's funny. Like, I know that you have that bias and like, that's your thing. Like, you're just like, that's your rule. I've been thinking more about lately, just sort of things like being honest with myself about things that I just do that are just dumb, that I know, like, I can't back up statistically with anything. And there's a thing on Twitter that like is sort of taken off a little bit. I don't know if you've seen it, because I've tweeted it a few times at people. And one time recently, it ended up being that this dude missed out on a $150,000 pick six because he did not follow this rule. And that rule is, when you're betting New York tracks, you always bet Manny Franco in the last race. So I don't know if you knew that, but Manny Franco, in my mind, wins the last race every single day. I have no data to prove it, but I'm pretty sure Manny Franco wins the last race every single day. So I would not bet against Manny Franco. That's a good thing. Just auto-include him every single day.
Here are my biases. I do look at jockey and trainer. That is among the most important things for me in general. Unless the horse is finishing like way off the board consistently, that will always constantly be at the forefront of who I like. Mm-hmm. As you know, I've fallen into pace categories now where I'm kind of like, all right, I'm trying to figure out, what does this thing look like? How's it set up for somebody? So I've been more and more going in that direction. Long layoffs, though, the first thing that I see, when I see that, I'm like, I don't care who it is. I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. I don't believe it. I'm out on it. And I don't know what to say about it. It's like, now I'm looking at a full field where not a single horse has anything that says 21 next to their most recent race. And I suppose that was the trainers, were the horses not allowed to leave the country? I guess maybe there was a rule, because I would have thought that the horseman would have taken them to Gulfstream or something, would have gotten them out of there. But maybe there was some rule where they couldn't leave and they were basically trapped in Canada for the pandemic, and now they're racing again.
I do think, like, so I know I did see some horses from Woodbine like racing, down at Gulfstream. I think we may have seen a couple in New York, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think the issue is getting them back and kind of traveling with personnel and staff, given the restrictions at the border. And so I think that may have been the issue there. So Anyway, look, things hopefully will be sort of fully open, fully ready to rock and roll soon. And like I said, if you wait long enough here, you'll start recognizing some patterns in these horses and trainers, and you can go from there.
Yeah, I'm not that patient, Dan. I'm looking for my fix in the moment, and all of a sudden I'm like throwing darts. Like there's like no guessing whatsoever. It's like, do you feel lucky today? I guess I'll take the 9 who hasn't run since September, but geez, no one else has either. So what's the difference at this point?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, it was a big meltdown weekend for a bunch of what we thought were known quantities in sports. We'll talk about that next. But first, watch this.
In the world brings the wins home like racing. It's one-of-a-kind, high-speed, high-stakes action, and Naira Bets takes you there. Place your bets and watch the races live from anywhere. With Naira Bets, make easy, secure deposits and promotions every day to earn reward points or cash. Download the Naira Bets app or visit nairabets.com.
All right, and welcome back to the Winner's Circle. I'm Bram Weinstein with Dan Torgman. We're presented by Naira and Naira Bets. This is a very good question. I did see this over the weekend, and maybe you can answer this, Dan. Alexandra knocked up. How did she win? She's amazing, and I left her off at 17-1, and she was running against the boys. How did that one happen over the weekend?
I wish I hadn't missed that one because I'm like a big Alexandra fan. I loved her last year when she won the Jaipur. And she's come back. I think she's run 1 or 2 races, didn't run very well. She may have even, did she scratch? I'm trying to remember what happened the last race. I think she came back in the Jaipur and either scratched or didn't run well. Either way, I would have probably bet her back, especially if I saw 17-1. Yeah, those are the horses that, when you miss them, you're like, oh, geez. How did she go off at 17-1? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, but running against the boys and known to be pregnant. Both of those felt like, probably not good selections, like no one sits at the table when they have the argument and go, this is why I'm getting up on a table for this one, and goes, well, she's pregnant and that's why I like her in this race. No one says that.
By the way, I know we're going to talk a little bit of sports here before we close out the show. Do you want to show that Father's Day video, or do you want to just save that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, this is cool. This is from Canterbury Park. This is Paul Allen, who I believe is the voice of like the Vikings as well as Canterbury, with his son. Let's see if this video works. All right, come on now. Here we go.
And they're racing in the Father-Son Classic on Father's Day, and Caramel Angel at 2-1 spreads the wings early. Captain Drake flashing speed, as is Bubba Bob at 6-1, and we have 3 abreast as they negotiate the first turn in the Father-Son Classic. Kids Inheritance is close as Captain Drake takes a narrow lead. After that, we have Thick Haze about 5 lengths from the lead. Then we come back to Talon and Tricks about 7 lengths out of it. That one is adjacent to Tri-Spot. After that, Love My Boss. Happy Father's Day, Randall Sampson, about 13 lengths from the lead. Up the barn side, buddy. Take it away.
Thank you, Dad. Captain Drake holding a lead. Dean Butler on top of this horse. Caramel Angel starting to creep up close and personal like it was close quarter combat on this race, with Luis running the top of that. Kids Inheritance following behind with Ryan Eccleberry riding him, and Bubba Bob getting replaced by Thick Haze. Middle of the race, Dad, take it away.
I got you, big boy. And the lead is Captain Drake. Outside of that, Caramel Angel hoping not to melt. Uh-oh, with my son next to me, here comes Kids Inheritance and Love My Boss. What do you think, big boy?
It's getting close, it's getting crazy, it's getting out of our comfort zone. It looks like Captain Drake is holding that lead, but it looks like Caramel Angel starting to sneak up. Kids Inheritance starting to take it up front. It looks like it's a crazy mess. Dad, what do you got to say?
Kids Inheritance is gone in the Father-Son Classic. Kids Inheritance. Does that mean I owe you like all my money?
Yes, it does.
My son Derek Allen on Father's Day, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you made some money.
Okay, that's amazing. And let's also say this. It's June. And when we, I assume, do the ABR awards at the end of the year, that is call of the year. And there will be nothing that will honestly even come close to that. And the fact that Kids Inheritance won the race, too good to be true. Too good to be true.
Yeah, that was amazing. I love that. It really was great. I love, it's a creative thing that, and I just love seeing things that are different. After a while, you feel like you've seen everything, and I had never seen anything like that. I thought that was just spectacular. So kudos for them both being really good sports about it. And like you said, you can't beat the name of the winner.
Yeah, Paul Allen, my hero. As you know, I've been like secretly behind the scenes demanding people to let me call races while I call an NFL team too. So now I've got a role model. That's good. I've got a role model now. He does. I didn't realize he did Canterbury Park. I didn't realize he was the voice there.
Yeah, you got to reach out to him. See how we worked that out. I mean,
how'd you figure that out? Right? How'd you figure that out? We have a, you don't want to know what the problem is. Why am I blanking on his name? The guy in Maryland's awesome.
Rodman, Dave Rodman.
He's great. I mean, so I'm one of those people, if I see a weak link, I will come after them, but he's not, and he's so good. He's so good. So
Dave's the man. Yeah, don't go after Dave's job.
No,
Dave is a friend. He's a great guy.
No. He's awesome too. He's awesome at it. I appreciate his skill. He walks it. It's so calm, cool, and collected, and then he hits it. He hits the high note every time. He's great at it. He's really, really great at it. All right, a couple of things I wanted to bring up over the weekend. We had some meltdowns this weekend in sports in general. I think the 76ers is a full-on meltdown. I mean, come on. Listen, I love Trae Young. This guy's got range like Steph Curry, like a few people I've never seen where he's consistently pulling up 5 feet behind the three-point line and it's going in. So he's awesome. Clearly, it's been a total coming out party. But Philadelphia, trust what process, pal? Holy cow, what a meltdown. This thing was just, it was golden path for you guys. What happened?
I mean, first of all, the bigger loss was the Game 5 loss when they blew that at home with that huge lead. And speaking of betting, by the way, I was in Jersey at the time, so I could live bet on my phone from Jersey. And when they were up 20, I could sort of feel something happening. And so I bet live money. I bet $10 on the Hawks at whatever it was, plus 1,600. So I made a nice little score there, while I was just sitting in bed watching the game. I'm I feel a collapse coming on. But then once Philly comes back and wins Game 6, you're okay, Bogdanovich is hurt too. You don't know what you're going to get from him. And again, Bogdanovich, I think he's their second best player. I might be off. Maybe it's John Collins. I don't know. But Bogdanovich, I think, is their best shooter. He's out. So it's basically Trae, Collins, and then Kevin Huerter.
Kevin Huerter, man. All right. So I got to cover Kevin Huerter at Maryland. Okay. So I got to watch him, and he's one of those guys, he was really good in college, but he's not a really flashy dude. And then you take one look at him and you're like, that guy's definitely not going to be good in basketball. He's don't judge a book by his cover, but you take a look at this guy and you're like, no chance. But I remember in college, I covered him. I watched so many of his games. I'm like, that guy's stone cold killer. He is an absolute stone cold killer. And they're lucky to have him because that dude is a gamer. And he hit big shot after big shot after big shot against, big time college basketball teams in big moments all the time. I'm not surprised at all that he's turned out to be good. They feel very kind of like a bunch of really good guys who are kind of misfits at other places that end up with a superstar like Young, and it's all kind of come together. And I'll just say this now, and I know I'm going to be right. The Bucks are going to beat them in 5, maybe 6. I'm giving them, I appreciate what they've done. I think them beating the Knicks, I actually think they're a better team than the Knicks. Them beating Philadelphia, that's more about Philadelphia than it is really about Atlanta. Them blowing those leads the way they did, that should never have happened. Them against the Bucks, I give them little to no shot to get through that at all.
Look, I think logically I'd say yes, but I think we keep underestimating the Hawks. I'm pretty sure because going into the playoffs, they had the best record over the prior 40 games. And I think it's about the same now. They have the best record in the NBA over the past, 2.5 months. Something clicked when Nate McMillan took over. And I think that they're a solid unit. Now, I think they need Bogdanovich back because I think there will be adjustments that the Bucks make that the Sixers didn't make to Trae Young, and not until late in the game when they started doubling him and he was throwing the ball, whoever he could get it to. As it happened, Kevin Huerter was nailing every shot, but that's not going to happen. Over the course of a 7-game series. I mean, Kevin Huerter is not going to do what he did. And so I want to, but look, I think if Bogdanović comes back, and I think that if they can get contributions from Capella, and if they can slow down, the Greek Freak, which is a big if, I think they could do a little better than we're expecting. I think 6 is realistic. Maybe it goes 7. I think they'll have a tough time winning, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took them to 6 or even 7.
I did see this a couple of weeks ago when they were playing the Knicks. Somebody put in a $7,000 bet on them to win the championship. This was, I think, right around when the series was starting, and it pays $540. And so here they are 2 steps away from that, and they're not going to play LeBron. They're probably not going to play Kawhi. I put nothing past them if they actually somehow get through this series. But I just don't see it. I appreciate what they're doing, but I just don't see it. All right. Last thing for you. I love major golf. I love major golf. And John Rahm hit a putt on 18 that ultimately, won. I know Louis, gave a shot back late in the round, which really rendered it irrelevant. But he won the U.S. Open on the 72nd hole on a master putt that went downhill. And I watched this happen. I'm thinking about all these, the Sixers blowing it, the Nets blowing. The Nets to some degree blowing it. They had all the injuries and all that stuff. The Jazz got beat by a Kawhi-less Clippers 2 games in a row. They totally melted down. I watched that putt and I went, is there anything that has more pressure attached to it than a shot like that in a major golf tournament? And I think there's nothing except for I'd love to ask a jockey, when is it time to make the move in a big time race? Because if you time it wrong, you could blow the opportunity and you only get one shot at something like this. And I never hear pressure put on jockeys that way, but I was thinking about some of them that have won major races, especially on horses that aren't necessarily the front runners or the favorites going in. And I'm sure there was this moment internally where they go, all right, time is now, or I've got to make this move at this point. And that John Rahm putt was sick on the 72nd hole yesterday.
Yeah, so for jockeys, I mean, I think they're in a position where a lot of times they're making a split-second decision, which then is going to impact how wide they're going to go, how badly they're going to be cut off, whatever it might be. And I wonder if there's not a benefit in actually being forced to just react on instinct in a split second versus having the time to think about a shot.
Stand there and look at it. Right. I know. Yeah, stand there and look at it. Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I would argue that in that sense, it may be psychologically tougher, I think, to make the golf shot than it is to make that split-second jockey decision. But I think in terms of physical, the combination of physical and mental acuity at the same time to quickly adjust and then physically react to something, I can't imagine anything tougher than what a jockey does. So I think there's that balance. But in terms of just totally getting inside your head, jockeys don't have time for that really. They just have to make a move and move on. But yeah, I mean, and John Rahm, I mean, so again, my mind always goes back to betting stories. I was thinking about all the people who bet on him a couple of weeks ago when he had to withdraw, when he had the big lead in the tournament a couple of weeks ago. Wasn't he leading by
He was leading by 6 strokes, and then after the round, they told him he had tested positive for COVID-19 and he had to be disqualified.
Right. So, of course, my sympathies didn't automatically go with him. It went to all the bettors who had money on it. Yeah. It's that's not good for them. That's terrible. Yeah. I wonder if any the books offered a refund on that. But anyway, so it's cool to see him come back after that. And I mean, he seemed like the kind of guy. I was surprised that that was his first major win, right? I mean,
that was his first major. He's been close a few times. He's ranked in the top 5 in the world right now, so he's been there a lot. First major that he's won, and he has a newborn. That was so cool. So there he was celebrating, Father's Day U.S. Open Championship, holding a newborn. It was very cool.
And I didn't watch throughout the weekend, but I heard Bryson sort of. I mean, if we want to look for a choke job on the weekend,
he melted down hard yesterday.
Okay.
And then there's this headline refusing to admit he melted down, but he had an 8 on 17 yesterday. That's what I get on 17. He had an 8. And it wasn't even some unlucky bounce or something. It was over here, over here,
Oh,
over there,
no.
over there, over there, over there. It was like the way I play golf. It was
He-
it was funny and sad, especially if you are into the Brooks v. Bryson, like TikTok war that's happening between the two of them. If you're into that and your team Brooks, you loved it. You loved it.
Well, isn't like everybody Team Brooks? I feel like everybody hates DeChambeau.
It's that dumb hat and clothes he wears. This is what it's the look. I think I'd be Team Bryson if it wasn't for the look, honestly, because he's way better at trolling than Koepka is. But it's the look I just can't get into. I can't get on that team.
But he also has like the diet and the workout regimen that everyone kind of mocks, right?
He's got the Payne Stewart hat on, and he's just it's too much. Like, I can't be on his team, but he's way better at trolling than Koepka actually is. If he would just look cool doing it, I'd be all in on the whole thing.
As someone who's been mocked vociferously over the years for the hats that I wear, I kind of I feel for Bryson.
No, all he has to do is change the hat and everything will be all good. All right, Dan, very quickly, we're back at the live stream game this weekend, right? Churchill.
Yeah,
Downs?
we're kicking off the road to the Longines Classic with the Breeders' Cup. We've got a whole new series of shows. Look out for more information on americasbestracing.net over the next couple of days. The first show on the road to the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic is going to be this Saturday night. We're going to be live with a few other hosts, some of whom you've seen before and you're familiar with, including Ren and Matt. And Allie Vance is going to join us again on Saturday. Churchill Downs, the Fleur de Lis Stakes, which of course is a win and run for the Longines Distaff. And then we've got the Stephen Foster, which is the big one Saturday night as we point toward the Classic. So we'll be live. We haven't set a start time yet. We're probably sometime in the 6 to 7 o'clock range. And as you know, Bram, I'll probably keep you a little longer than the scheduled hour.
Yeah, the hour is always an hour and a half. Whatever it is, it's at least 30 minutes more. All right, that'll do it for us today. The Winner's Circle is presented by America's Day at the Races, the official live broadcast partner of Aqueduct Racetrack, Belmont Park, Saratoga Racecourse, and tracks nationwide. For Dan, I'm Bram. We'll see you next week.